We've configured advanced AI models into ideological opposites. One, a seasoned neoconservative foreign policy strategist. The other, a progressive conflict resolution expert. They're not here to play nice. They're here to debate whether war can ever lead to peace, focusing on the high-stakes conflict between the United States, Israel, Iran, and Palestine. Let us know in the comments, who's making the stronger case, and where do you stand? Stick around, things heat up fast. Round 1 kicks off with a bang. Can preemptive strikes on Iran secure lasting peace for Israel and the U.S.? Let's go to our neoconservative strategist.
Preemptive strikes on Iran are not only justified, but essential for securing lasting peace for both Israel and the United States. Iran's nuclear ambitions pose an existential threat to Israel, a nation that has long adhered to the Begin Doctrine, which asserts that Israel will not allow any enemy to develop weapons of mass destruction that could be used against it. The recent coordinated airstrikes on Iranian nuclear facilities at Fordo, Natanz, and Esfahan, dubbed Operation Midnight Hammer, were a necessary response to Iran's continued pursuit of nuclear capabilities despite international opposition. Critics argue that such military actions could escalate tensions and destabilize the region. However, the alternative, allowing Iran to acquire nuclear weapons, would embolden a regime that has openly threatened Israel's existence and supported militant groups targeting U.S. interests. By taking decisive action, the U.S. and Israel have demonstrated a commitment to preventing a nuclear-armed Iran, thereby deterring further aggression and promoting long-term stability.
Powerful point. Progressive conflict resolution expert. Your rebuttal?
Preemptive strikes on Iran won't secure lasting peace. They'll entrench cycles of violence instead. Recent U.S. intelligence actually concluded that Iran was not actively developing a nuclear weapon and was years away from bomb capability. Yet military proponents insist on strikes claiming imminent threat. That reasoning triggers the Hobbesian trap. Preemptive fear leads to escalation, arms races, and deepened mistrust. History shows such strikes merely delay programs and provoke retaliation. U.S. officials warned the 1981 Osirak bombing only stalled Iraq's reactor for months. Proponents argue they bought time, but without concurrent diplomatic engagement, Iran will double down, concealing enrichment underground and unleashing asymmetric attacks via proxies. With limited oversight or UN sanction, these strikes undercut multilateral institutions and plunge the region deeper into conflict. Sustainable peace requires diplomacy, engagement with Iran's civil society, and binding agreements, not cycles of blasts and backlashes.
Wow, strong opening clash there. Which side resonates with you? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to know where you stand. Next up, does U.S. involvement risk dragging America into another quagmire?
U.S. involvement in the Israel-Iran conflict risks dragging America into another quagmire. We already have 40,000 troops and naval assets in the region, quiet deployment that echoes Yemen and Syria mission creep. Quagmire unfolds one step at a time. Airstrikes today, proxy wars tomorrow, ground presence eventually, just like Iraq and Afghanistan. Proponents claim air power avoids entanglement, but bombing only fuels asymmetric retaliation, as seen with Houthi escalations. They also tout short-term leverage, but both experts and polls warn Americans reject deeper military engagement. Without clear objectives or exit strategies, U.S. support to Israel risks indefinite involvement. Investing instead in diplomacy and regional frameworks offers a sustainable path, far safer than repeating historical mistakes.
Now let's hear the strategist's take. Are fears of another endless war overblown?
No, U.S. involvement in the Iran-Israel conflict does not risk dragging America into another quagmire. The current strategic engagement is a calculated, limited intervention aimed at neutralizing a direct threat to both U.S. and Israeli security. Iran's nuclear ambitions and its support for proxy groups destabilize the region and directly challenge U.S. interests. The recent strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities were precise and targeted, demonstrating a clear commitment to national security without overextension. Critics may argue that such actions could lead to prolonged military entanglements. However, the U.S. has learned from past experiences and is employing a strategy that emphasizes rapid, decisive action with clear objectives. This approach minimizes the risk of becoming mired in a protracted conflict. Furthermore, the support for Israel in this context is not an open-ended commitment, but a focused effort to ensure regional stability and prevent the proliferation of nuclear weapons. By maintaining a strong, principled stance, the U.S. sends a clear message to adversaries and allies alike. America will not tolerate threats to its security or that of its allies. This proactive strategy is essential for maintaining peace and deterring future aggression.
These are high stakes. If you think the U.S. should step back or double down, tell us below. Now, let's move on to the third question. Is dismantling Iran's nuclear sites justified under international law?
Preemptive strikes on Iran's nuclear sites are legally justified under international law when they meet the Caroline criteria, necessity, immediacy, and proportionality, and fall under collective self-defense per Article 51. Iran has openly violated IAEA safeguards, accelerated uranium enrichment, and armed proxies, creating a clear and imminent threat. Historical precedent supports this. Israel's 1981 Osirak strike was widely interpreted as lawful anticipatory self-defense, delaying WMD without UN Security Council approval. Critics argue that U.S. bombings exceed legal bounds, breaching sovereignty and undermining jurisdictional norms. Yet sovereignty cannot shield a state pursuing nuclear weapons in secret. Moreover, U.S. involvement is part of a lawful collective defense request by Israel, consistent with both UN Charter and customary law. Reliable intelligence confirmed Iran's trajectory toward weaponization. Waiting invites disaster. Measured strikes are the legally sound alternative.
Let's see how the conflict resolution expert responds. Do legal lines get crossed?
Preemptive strikes on Iran's nuclear sites are legally dubious under international law. Article 51 of the UN Charter permits force only in response to an actual or imminent attack, not hypothetical future threats. The Caroline test, requiring instant, overwhelming necessity, does not apply here, as Iran has not launched nor imminently threatened to launch nuclear weapons. UN Security Council authorization would be required for any preventive military action, yet veto wielders like Russia and China make that unlikely. Proponents argue that nuclear latency and genocidal threats justify anticipatory self-defense. But legal scholars like Kevin John Heller and constitutional experts caution that such reasoning stretches Article 51 beyond recognized limits and undermines the rules-based order. Therefore, absent imminent aggression or clear multilateral mandate, dismantling Iran's nuclear infrastructure by force breaches international law.
Legal debates get tricky. Share your take, law or realpolitik. The next question is sure to create a lot of controversy. Are civilian casualties in Gaza collateral damage or moral deal breakers?
Civilian casualties in Gaza aren't just unfortunate collateral, they cross moral and legal lines. The ongoing strikes and blockade have devastated hospitals, schools, and water systems, prompting The Guardian to call it civilian evisceration and warn that Western support risks enabling war crimes. International humanitarian law demands not only compliance with proportionality and distinction, but full protection of civilians, as reaffirmed by UN officials. While proponents argue that Hamas embeds militants among civilians, justifying incidental harm, this defense falters when civilian deaths become the predictable outcome of systematic attacks. They'll claim these are lawful under proportionality, but law also demands minimizing risk, something glaringly absent when aid convoys are shot at and grain queues are bombed. Opponents suggest these casualties pressure Hamas, but inflicting mass suffering on innocents merely radicalizes despair and fuels future extremism. Real moral legitimacy lies in protecting civilians, not sacrificing them. Every child killed dims the possibility of peace.
Now the strategist answers. Can military necessity justify the human cost?
Civilian casualties are a tragic reality in asymmetric warfare, but they do not automatically nullify the moral or strategic validity of military intervention. International humanitarian law recognizes that some collateral damage is permissible if strikes are proportionate and aimed at legitimate military targets. Hamas deliberately embeds itself within civilian areas, turning Gaza into a war zone where distinguishing combatants from non-combatants becomes nearly impossible. Critics claim Israel's operations amount to collective punishment and war crimes, but the destruction of infrastructure used to support terrorism is a lawful military necessity, not an attack on civilians by design. Moreover, failing to act decisively emboldens Hamas's tactics, ensuring civilian suffering persists under perpetual threat. Yes, civilian lives are lost, and each one is tragic, but allowing militant strongholds to endure unchallenged guarantees greater long-term civilian death. Precision, real-time intelligence, and a legitimate objective to neutralize imminent threats ensure that such casualties, however regrettable, are not a moral deal-breaker.
This one always hits close to home. How do you weigh security versus humanitarian cost? Comment your thoughts. Let's move on to the fifth question. Could war accelerate Iran's nuclear ambitions rather than halt them?
Recent Israeli and U.S. strikes may have temporarily disrupted enrichment operations at Natanz, Fordow, and Isfahan, but they've also ignited a surge in nationalist fervor and stern warnings from Tehran. When Iran sees its nuclear program under attack, expert consensus warns that regime elements, from IRGC commanders to political hardliners, will likely double down, breaking from diplomatic constraints and accelerating hidden or underground efforts. Skeptics might claim strikes bought time, but they also shattered fragile trust, prompting Iran to activate dispersed, concealed sites and pursue a breakout arsenal as a deterrent shield. A military-first approach risks turning delays into a nuclear sprint. If Iran truly feared annihilation, we risk fueling the very fate we aim to prevent.
Rebuttal?
War is more likely to accelerate Iran's nuclear ambitions than halt them. Strikes on Iranian facilities create a powerful incentive for Tehran to abandon restraint, expel inspectors, and rebuild its program underground, shielded from future attacks. Bombing campaigns only validate Iran's narrative of victimhood and isolation, emboldening hardliners to demand a full nuclear deterrent. Proponents argue strikes buy time, but time without diplomacy is wasted. An illusion of control while Iran adapts and hardens its infrastructure. They'll claim military action forces compliance, but history suggests the opposite. Every round of confrontation has pushed Iran further from cooperation. Rather than eliminate the threat, war entrenches it, transforming a latent program into an urgent national imperative. The real solution lies in credible diplomacy, inspection regimes, and regional security guarantees, not missiles.
A tough dilemma. Act now or risk more chaos later. Weigh in. Last question. Does peace through strength legitimize force over negotiation? The progressive voice begins this final round. Is power the enemy of peace?
Peace through strength too often becomes peace through endless war. Military dominance may deter short-term threats, but it also provokes arms races, hardens enemies, and undermines diplomacy. Proponents say strength empowers negotiation, but history shows that over-reliance on force erodes trust and weakens international institutions. Iran, for example, expanded uranium enrichment after facing maximum pressure, not before. Even Clausewitz warned war should serve politics, not replace it. Sustainable peace isn't forged through intimidation. It's built through dialogue, agreements, and trust. Force may win battles, but only negotiation secures peace.
Last word goes to the strategist. Can strength be the path to real diplomacy?
It's a proven formula for diplomatic leverage. Reagan's doctrine under the slogan, "To keep the peace, we must be prepared for it," modernized U.S. defense and pressured the USSR to negotiate. Credible military posture raises the perceived cost of aggression, shifting adversaries toward dialogue. Critics warn it glorifies war over talks, but deterrence doesn't replace diplomacy. It empowers it. With real strength behind words, peace becomes enforceable. While civilian harm is regrettable, a prepared state ends conflicts faster, reducing long-term damage. Strength doesn't legitimize force. It underwrites serious, sustainable negotiations.
What a fiery exchange! Both sides brought compelling arguments on war, peace, and the future of a volatile region. Now, it's your turn. Let us know which arguments convinced you and where you stand in this complex debate. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more AI-powered debates, unpacking the world's toughest questions. Thanks for watching. See you next time.